So somebody the other day commented that they had no idea what DSP meant, but they knew that any plugin brand that used DSP was good. And while I totally see the sentiment, technically that's like kind of nonsense. So then that brings into question, you may ask, what is DSP? So literally like everything you hear on your phone or your computer, it's DSP. Your reverb, your DAW, Spotify, all of it's DSP. Every plugin you've ever used has DSP. Well, if DSP is in literally everything, and it's not some premium exclusive feature, and it's just how digital audio exists, then why would it be a selling point for some companies, and why are the companies that it is a selling point for, why does their sound better? So our goal here to make this sound into ones and zeros is we're taking this physical sound wave, plotting it into a digital grid, and we're doing math to those numbers, and that's turning it into beautiful sound our computer can read. And the difference between good sounding plugins and bad sounding plugins and their use of DSP is in how carefully they're doing that math. So let's take a closer look at what the math is. So essentially, when we plot sound into data for our computer to read, we're putting it in two different axes. We have our time, and we have our amplitude, and our time is also our frequency. Okay, so let's start with sample rate. Sample rate is our time axis. It dictates how many snapshots or samples of the audio we take per second. It determines the highest frequency pitch you can accurately capture. So we've talked about time/frequency. The other axis is going to be your amplitude or your volume, how loud something is, which is bit depth. So bit depth is essentially just how many digital steps or values are available to measure exactly how loud a snapshot of any given microsecond is. So when the math is handling these two axes, it can get sloppy because eventually at some point you've got to start rounding some shit. The most obvious way is aliasing, which has to deal with sample rate. So there's a hard mathematical limit called the Nyquist frequency, and that is going to be exactly half of your sample rate. So if a plugin is generating harmonics that go above this limit, if your sample rate is too low, it's literally not going to be able to capture these noises. Instead, those high frequencies will be reflected down into an audible spectrum. Good DSPs are essentially using oversampling, or they're going to use a really high sample rate. Now the other most common error I can think that you run into is quantization errors, which is the problem of bit depth. So bit depth is the precision of your amplitude. If a plugin does complex math and ends up with a volume level that falls between two available digital steps, we've got a round. And this rounding error will create a harsh granular distortion. So another issue in digital signal processing is clock jitter. And this also works on our time axis. Every sample snapshot needs to be happening as perfectly as we can possibly make it. So if our digital clock is even slightly unstable, like a sample arrives, I don't know, a millisecond early or late, when played back, we're gonna feel it. It's gonna have phase issues, it's gonna sound weak, There's two axes, jitter live zone. So jitter depth is essentially the severity of the timing error, whereas jitter frequency is how quickly the speed of this clock and forth is happening. So moving on to the next way that things can go wrong is hard clipping, which is a problem of amplitude or loudness. If a signal gets too loud or pushes past DDFS, there's literally nothing left to represent it, so we're gonna take that nice smooth little wave and it's gonna become a square. We're just gonna chop off those tie-ins. Most obvious other one, which is dithering, which is supposed to be the cure to our bit depth problem. It's kind of what you would at first think counterintuitive. So to stop harsh rounding errors, you're going to intentionally put tiny amounts of randomized noise into your signal before you round the numbers off. And this noise randomizes the quantization error, and basically what it does is breaking up those step-like effects. And why would it be a selling point for some companies, and why are the companies that it is a selling point for, why does their sound better? Well, from what we've covered here, high sample rates, high bit depth, stable clocking, smart limiting, careful dithering. For example, if you go change your sample rate from 96K to 44.1K, I doubt you'll hear the difference. But next time you feel like a plugin is warm, or sounds more analog, you can come back and think, it's probably the DSP. And anyways, thanks for letting me mansplain another audio topic.